5 years of asking questions. Travel, people, ideas. Yes, politics and religion. Get real with me, Rick Dancer. Almost feels like it's right. You know, like this is where I'm supposed to be. Well, that's because it is where you're supposed to be, Rick. This is Tuesday night. It is, did you notice I was talking to myself in the third person? That's when you know that you're the beginning signs of mental illness. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. It's great to have you here. We got a really fun topic for you tonight. I think you're going to really enjoy this. I want to give you some sponsors here. One of our sponsors is a great guy right here locally in Montana, Fairway. He's a mortgage broker, independent mortgage broker. His name is Greg Hinkle. He's out of the Helena, Montana offices there. And he's one of our sponsors. He loves what we do. He loves our content. He loves the fact that we're talking about things. I'm sure Greg doesn't agree with everything we talk about on here, but he's glad that we're talking about it. And so Greg is one of our sponsors. If you're looking for a mortgage, he's really good at taking your family's your resources and investing those in real estate right now. And it's still a good opportunity to invest in real estate at this point in our lives. Our other sponsor, Chris Dental Family Dentistry out of Eugene, Oregon, and Denture Center. Dr. Bratland is one of our longest time sponsors, and he loves the fact that we're doing Montana and Oregon too. Chris Dental just started a denture center. So if you're in the need of dentures, they do partials. He has a denturist on staff. So it's not him. It's a real denturist doing the work for you. And then our third sponsor is one of our, I'm going to play a commercial from them in just a few minutes, but it's Montana Oral Surgeons, and they do also cosmetic denture work, and where they actually the implant work. And I'm going to go interview one of the doctors tomorrow, but we'll have a little message from Montana Oral Surgeons and Implant Center and coming up in just a little bit. Those are our sponsors, and they're out of Helena. They have offices in Billings, also Bozeman, and also have an office in Butte, Montana. So that's for our Montana listeners. And tonight we're going to be in Montana because we're going to be talking about ranching and what goes on in ranching. And it's women. None of this was planned by me. It just kind of happened. But it is, we're paying attention to women for the month of March. So I just happened to get a woman who is a rancher in a little town near Townsend, Montana here, and went out and spent some time with her last week. So I'm going to show you that story first, and then we're going to come back and she's going to be live, kind of like live in the studio, if you could say that, versus Zoom. And she'll tell us a little bit more. We're going to have some questions and talk a little bit more about ranching. So here's the story we did the other day when we went out to her ranch. How long has your family been here?
So I'm fifth generation. Would have been great grandpa and his brother came here in like the mid 1880s. So early 1880s. So yeah, they came from Minnesota on the river to Fort Benton and then just traveled down to here and settled. And that's kind of where we've been since.
Cattle ranching?
Yep, we've done more grain and stuff in the past, but now we're kind of just strictly in cows. It's a little easier for us. We grow our own hay a little bit, but we have a farmer neighbor that does a lot of it for us as well. So,
God, you're in the most beautiful place.
We are quite lucky. I really enjoy where we're at. I always think it's nice. My husband and I actually got married in this pasture when it was a little less covered in cow pies, so.
You moved the cow pies for the wedding?
We moved the cow pies for the wedding. We tried.
Do you put them back when you're done?
We do, yes. It's good fertilizer. You don't want to get rid of them for too long.
Okay.
So these are heifers. So heifers are generally a little bit nicer because especially when they have babies, because they don't realize what's all going on yet. Our cows, I like to say our cows are pretty gentle. We try not to have too many wild ones just because it's a danger to us working them and stuff. But you always get one with a little bit of an attitude. So there's one or two out here that kind of doesn't really like me very much, but they're pretty good cows. So Big, leave them. So we've actually had a really good, we calve our heifers out here at home so we can watch them. And we start March 1st for calving our heifers, and we calved about, it was a smaller year. We only calved about 65, 70 out. But we only have 20 left, and it's only March 14th, 13th, 14th. So we've been going like gangbusters, which is nice.
How many a day usually?
So usually sometimes in the past, it feels like we're lucky if we get 1 or 2, but the last 3 days we've had 5 a day. So it was a little busier.
What don't people understand about ranching?
I think just a lot of people don't really ever consider our intention maybe with it, just because people are so far removed from rural situations anymore. Our intention isn't ever to destroy land or hurt the environment. If anything, we want good land, and a healthy environment is good for us. We just want to raise cows and feed people. I mean, that's all there is to it. We're not greedy. We're not out for a bunch of money. We're not trying to ruin things. I like to think that I don't really own land. I just kind of take care of it for the next generation, because I want it to continue on. I want the open spaces to be there. I like being able to feed people.
Yeah, you've gotten a bad rap over the years, huh?
It's been a little tough, but I think and I think too that the bad is always going to sound louder than the good. And I know a lot of people are supportive of beef and everything and agriculture. And at the same token, if somebody doesn't want to eat beef or doesn't want to eat meat, that's their prerogative. And I don't have a problem with that. That's 100% their choice to do. Now let's see. Yeah, my grandpa grew up in that house, I think. They built that house in 1911 and the barn in 1911. And then my dad grew up in the house I live in now, just down the way here. So we're all real close.
I bet.
Everything's just a problem to be solved, and it's just who and what generation is going to solve that problem and make it better. So
Oh, look at you.
she's a little salty.
She's a little what?
She's a little salty.
Yeah, she looks kind of gruff. Like,
She's not my favorite.
well, you okay, Mama?
She shouldn't be bad.
Oh, look at you. Well, hello, little fella. All those eyelashes. Look at you. So this is like the maternity ward?
Yep, we would call it our heavy pen right now, which usually it wouldn't be so many, but we only have like 21 left, so they're all in here because they all fit. So rather than checking multiple pastures, but yep.
So somebody asked me, why do you have calving season in the winter?
In the winter?
Yeah, so because I know it's
there's fall calvers, and yeah. So we calve fig leave them. We calve in the March. A lot of our neighbors will start in January or earlier and stuff, but a lot of people will calve this time of year, mostly because of weights for shipping in the fall. I mean, is honestly the best time. The time everybody kind of ships is October, November. So this puts them at 6, 7, 8 months for shipping out and weaning. So it kind of comes down to that.
One rancher told me, what else am I going to do this time of year?
Right, exactly. Why not just be out in the cold? It's not like you can build fence. You can't work in your field. So we'll just calve. We ride every chance we get for a lot of our work, which is really nice. And we like working our cows that way. So we have quite a few saddles and bridles and all that fun stuff.
So they graze on public land then too?
Our cows do, yes. Yep. We have a couple leases up in the Elkhorns that we run on.
So for a total novice, every rancher is going to go, oh God, what an idiot. But so how do you find them all out there? You know what I mean? Once you've left them out for a season, I mean, you're kind of that'd be weird. You know what I mean? My wife and I were asking this the other day. We saw some up in the mountains and we're like, well, I wonder what they do.
Well, sometimes you don't find them, but they can show up eventually. The snow will drive them out. But really, I mean, they're not like sections and sections, but they do hide pretty well, but you can always catch them at water. There's very few watering holes up there and everything. So You go up multiple times a day and check water and see where they're at. And if you find them, you give them a push. You leave gates open so they can kind of meander to where they should go. And a lot of these girls have been in our program for so long, they kind of know the drill by now. If they're like, okay, it's time to go home, we get it. We'll start meandering down the mountain. So, but yeah, it's just riding, lots of riding, which is fun. You ride through the trees and it's just look for cows, curse at them sometimes, but it's all worth it. It's fun. And then my mom's just a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she ran her dad's ranch, and I think a lot of what I owe to my mom, because there was never a, well, she's a woman, she can't do it. Mom showed everybody that she could do anything. So, yeah, I will give it to the people around me here. I have never been made to feel less for being a woman in ranching. They just see me as one of the people out here, so, which is really nice. And I know I'm really fortunate for that, for sure. So.
Been in dentistry for 17 years, and I've been with our practice for about 2. And I have found that surgeons and doctors, they just really love what they're doing. It just has a pretty significant need here in Montana. So the things that they've really focused on, a lot of tooth extractions, like I said, dental implants is really their specialty. One of the things that's distinctly different about an oral surgeon versus most general dentists or other specialists is that sedation component. That the training to be able to safely administer sedation medications is really advanced. And so our doctors went through a lot of additional training in order to be able to do that safely. We have 4 locations, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have a location here in Helena, and then we will have one in Bozeman, one in Butte, and one in Great Falls.
So that's Montana Oral Surgery, and they're one of our sponsors. So if you're one of our Montana viewers and you like our content, give them some love. I know you're not dying to have oral surgery, but you know what? It can happen, and you need to, right, Melanie? You never know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen. Better take care of those teeth while you have them.
Gosh, aren't you glad? I mean, I am so glad that I was born in the generation I was. You know what I mean? Oh.
Right.
So Melanie joins us now off the farm. Well, she's still on the farm, but she's in her office at the house. So your family, what is that about those roots that go back that, when you walk on that land, do you think about, your grandpa and all those people that came before you? Is it 5 generations, you said?
It is. I'm 5th generation. And that's a huge driving factor as to why I do what I do. There's nothing quite like riding out and you crest a hill and you kind of look out and you stop and think, because I didn't know any of my relatives besides my dad, any of those previous generations. My grandpa died when I was young. So it helps me feel connected to them, to sit on top of a hill and think, wow, they've all sat here at some point. They would have seen this view, but it would have looked different. What would they have seen? And so it's really nice. It's a nice connection to the people that I never got to meet. But to feel like I'm carrying on something that they were a part of and felt proud of. It's just a really cool feeling. It's just totally different. I don't know if I could leave and go ranch somewhere else. It just wouldn't be the same.
And then your mother, who also has property up in that area. I mean, you are like if anybody's got it, they couldn't pull you out. You'd be like a alfalfa plant. I tried pulling one of those suckers out of the ground. It does not come out.
I am incredibly lucky. Yes. I had family all around and still do. So I'm lucky everybody settled where they did.
So what is it hard that because people really do have some people have the wrong idea about ranching.
Some people do have the wrong idea. And I think that's somewhere where my husband comes in is a really great influence. Not having grown up in ranching and having lived in he grew up in Colorado where it's tons of people and everything. And it's just like, he brings me back down to earth and says, that's a really small portion of people that really don't like it. Like we keep doing what we do. We know what's right. You don't want to get into fights with those people, especially in the age of the internet. It's so difficult, but
I think that our supporters are stronger than our naysayers. I mean, our beef sales are still great in the grocery store and things like that. So it's remembering that not everybody's going to like you. But also we do have to stand up for ourselves and fight for ourselves, because we are kind of being put in as the bad group. We're the cause of a lot of poor things, but we're really not. We just don't have the lobby power, it feels like sometimes, to show that we are doing good.
Just to the people watching right now, it is interesting. Some of you are putting where you're from. If you comment in there, just put a comment in and say where you're from, what state or what city and state. I like looking at your comments. I think it's kind of fun. So talk to people about the grazing in the federal lands. I know some people think that this is destructive, and I don't know. I've been on a cattle roundup before, for real. It wasn't Disneyland or anything like that. There's a real cattle roundup, and those animals there's so much land, and you explain.
So we try very hard to take the best care possible of our land. It is looked at every year by an agency, and they tell us if we need to improve somewhere, if we have to run less cattle the next year. At the end of it, it's all very, very well structured and very well taken care of, both by our side and like the Forest Service side. Say that's who we do some of our land leases from. A big part of it is we try to develop water on those pieces that are larger, so we can push the cows to broader areas so they can graze more heavily. If you only have one water, they're going to sit there and it's going to look a little rougher. They're not going to push out and graze a lot more of those areas. So water development is really important, but just grazing is important. A herd of elk or herd of deer, anything like that's not going to come through and graze it the way it needs to be grazed. And if you don't get rid of those dead and dying grasses annually, then pretty soon your whole ground starts to deteriorate. It's more healthy to graze it, to let new things grow. And we do weed spraying as well. We've gotten so much of it under control that without cattle in there, without us spraying it, the elk would pack burrs around and put in new stands of weeds as well. So we really take care of the land. We know that we get leases from the government for cheaper than, say, a private lease is. But we put a ton of work into it too. We are responsible for a lot of the fencing. We've done a lot of the water projects on our own. And we're always very cognizant that it is public land, and that when people are driving through it, it reflects on us what that land looks like. And so we always want it to be the best possible.
Well, and in some ways, in a big way, so your cattle are managing that land.
It does. Yep.
I think there's this misconception with the environmental community that, and then it spreads into the public, that it's the same in the forestry industry. If you just leave it alone, Mother Nature will take care of it. Well, Mother Nature is not really all that great at managing land for the number of people we have and the different uses that we have.
Right. Well, and we don't really allow Mother Nature to do her thing anymore. So many times, Mother Nature's way to manage is fire. Honestly, that's the best way that it manages. And every time a fire starts, we have to put it out, which is understandable. But that's so to say, let Mother Nature do it, but then not let Mother Nature do it. It doesn't work that way. We're too populated of an area anymore.
And what's interesting to me too is I talked to a rancher one time, a cattle rancher in Oregon, and she said, they complained because our cattle were drinking out of the river at the time, the Oahe River in Eastern Oregon. And she said, and nobody ever talks about all the man-made lakes that we built out in the middle of desert, and where there's water in there. And it's not just cattle that are drinking that water. That's elk and rabbits and coyotes and wolves and bear and everything. So you're providing habitat for a whole bunch of natural animals too. And they all get along out there.
For the most part. It's an eat or be eaten cycle somewhere, but yep.
Yeah, grizzly bear. That's a weird question. Do grizzlies ever eat cows?
We don't have a ton of grizzlies in our area, thankfully. We did have confirmed sighting of one last year, kind of where we run cows. We have more black bears, but mostly if, say, a calf gets sick and we don't find it in time and it dies, they'll eat on it then. But I mean, we don't have bears attack our cows. But I will say, I am not in grizzly country, and I know that there's a lot of people in the state of Montana that are having severe grizzly issues, but that's not something I feel qualified to speak on.
Right. And so people back in Oregon, if you don't know, there's the grizzly bear has been protected for so long, and now it's becoming to a point where some of us believe that it's overpopulated and it's being overmanaged, and people are dying and people are getting eaten. And I know sometimes people in the environmental community will say, well, it's their land. Well, we can manage that also.
Right.
When we come back, I want you to talk to people about the new controversy between cow poo and cow burping. Okay?
Okay.
What is it about dentistry that just connected for you? Because I mean, it's quite a jump from journalism to being a doctor.
I'm not the most social person in the world, like not like you, but I do like interaction with people, and it's fun. People being people's doctors, and I feel like I am a caring person, so I like figuring stuff out. I can figure it out. I can diagnose a tooth almost better than anybody. I've had people come in, they've been to 3 other dentists, they can't figure out what's going on, and I like that. It's like being a detective.
And you've also really centered your practice on buying American with your crowns and that kind of. I mean, that's really important to you.
Yeah, if I could buy everything 100% American, I would. It's hard. Like I even told my reps, I've repeated to my reps several times, like I don't want to buy stuff from China. I want to try to buy stuff in the United States. So my crowns are American. I even talked the lab into making sure they buy all the products from America. Like we need. So before we get back to Melanie, a really good point Dr. Bratland was talking about right there, buying American. And sometimes it does cost more, or buying local, making sure that you're buying local products. But I was listening to a podcast with Jordan Peterson today, and they were talking about that very aspect of our lives. Is we've got to get back to supporting our local communities and supporting our country. And being choosy. Now, so Kathy and I, in fact, one of the ranchers this is how I got Melanie, is Denise Thompson. And we bought our beef from Denise. She lives out here. She brought it over, hand delivered it, helped me put it in the freezer. And you know that those cattle came from right here. And that matters to people like you guys, doesn't it?
It does. It's always great to see people buying local, but I'm gonna throw a wrinkle into things because I'm a commercial beef producer. I don't sell anything locally. Mine all goes out to a feed yard, which then gets shipped to grocery stores. I love buying local. I love supporting local, but I want to get away from the thought that you can only buy local, or that the beef in the grocery store is any different or any less nutritious, safe than that beef you buy local.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of that, because it is local. It's just going somewhere else. They're buying Montana beef.
It is. And that's the other thing too, is if we all went and started selling our beef locally, Townsend couldn't support all of the beef ranchers. But then Chicago would have very little beef. I mean, I love selling locally and I love the aspect, but I don't ever want to make people afraid of grocery store beef. It's still great. It's still healthy. It's still delicious. And I know cool is a big issue. Everybody's trying to figure out a country of origin labeling system without getting slammed with tariffs and taxes. And it's not perfect yet or figured out, but we do try, the USDA does try very hard to make sure and ensure the safety of the food provided to us. And we have to remember that.
So talk to people about, because you and I are talking about this, and I mean, we were laughing, but it isn't really funny. But the new kind of climate religion screaming point is cow poop and the methane that comes from it and their burps.
Right. And I mean, it's true. Cows do produce methane, but so do a lot of things. And what's really cool, and I think you had it in the video, which was cool. I don't remember saying it. And I felt smart. That everything's just a problem to be solved, and they're finding ways to harness that methane, which is really cool, to make it into an energy source. So there's not only that, but there's also the celebrities and their 5-minute jet trips. And that was a huge thing for about 2 days. Everybody was, oh, Taylor Swift, her plane goes so much, but don't worry, it's her friends using it. It's not actually Taylor Swift. And the Kardashian Jenners, they're going on 5-minute trips across California. That methane climate producing thing, it's just, those are huge. But
right. I know that one creates carbon, one creates methane, but it's all going into the atmosphere. It's the same thing.
It's all affecting our atmosphere.
If people are getting carbon credits, because, which is just a big bunch of cow poop itself, is, hi, my business is completely carbon neutral because I buy cow points over here. So, I mean, it's a joke, and it drives me crazy. But every time Al Gore or Nancy Pelosi or DeSantis or somebody flies in an airplane across the country to a meeting or something, how much carbon are they putting in the air, and how much pollution is that versus how much however many head of cattle you have out there on that farm out in the big sky, Montana? Is that, I mean, if you really add it up, how much is that really contributing to the problem? It just seems absolutely insane to me.
Right. And that's the hard thing where, I mean, we're not the scientists and we don't have the time to tackle that problem and figure out the answer to it. And that's why we try to lobby or help pay for those types of studies, things to happen to help us promote ourselves.
Are there really more cattle in Montana than there are people?
Oh, I don't know anymore if that's true. Bozeman kind of had an explosion in the cow markets. Kind of the nationwide cow herd has dropped significantly in like the last 4 years. So that's a good question. I'm not sure on that one.
One of my viewers, Jason Greenbud, he's kind of a funny guy. He says, why can't you just give the cows Beano?
Right. That's a lot of Beano and a lot of cows.
well, and what you were talking about too. I remember a farm in Oregon out in Junction City, a dairy farm for Dairy Mart. They Lockmead Dairy. They had they built a methane plant there that could actually. Right. I did a video for them, and I think it could provide power. I mean, it sells on the open market, but I think it could power about 1,000 homes. So right. there are answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tom just wrote on here. One of my guys out in Junction City just wrote on my comment thing. Gibson Dairy burns it. Yeah. So there are answers to that, but it's not, you guys get targeted a lot. I remember, seeing that. And then when I went out on that cattle roundup, just seeing how those cows did manage that land for them, I thought that was powerful to me. They're really part of a process. And maybe we need to, as a culture, start looking at that in terms of timber and all the natural resources, going, how do we manage these things properly and wisely, but also take care of some of these issues? Because I think it's totally manageable.
Right. And I think that was the other hard thing too, and not to target dairies, because I think they do a great job of mitigating it and everything. But originally the methane problem, because they have more cows in a smaller area and they kind of have those lagoons because they have to clean their barns. If they didn't clean their barns, then they'd be coming after them for cows living in filth. They have a more compact amount of cow manure in a smaller area. So that's going to seem to put off more methane. And somebody said cows produce methane. And so it was all cows in general, but my cow poop is spread out over a mass amount of area. So it's not like sitting and composting and releasing it all at once in a single area. So, I mean, I think there's some differences there too. Again, I'm not a scientist.
Right.
So if somebody knows more, please don't come at me in the comments.
No, somebody is on here. I'm trying to see if I can dare. Mustangs are by the thousands are being rounded up by helicopters in the BLM. They quickly decline in health when they're held back. Not many are getting adopted. Our public lands are leased out to cattle and sheep ranchers for their personal profits. Mustangs are icons and need to be taken into account. But you guys, it is for your profit, but it's also for an industry that feeds other people too.
It is. And I will say there are no Mustangs in Montana. And I know the BLM is doing a very good job of trying to rectify or work with the Mustang problem and make it better. But at the same time, I mean, that can pose a danger as well for those public lands to have that many wild horses that are constantly reproducing. Because if they are running on public lands, then you have to find people and more expense to maintain fences, but you don't want to fence in a bunch of wild horses. That's extremely dangerous. They can't survive the winter always in those landscapes. That's a really big concern. And then especially in some of our land where we run our cows, people will go camping. Our cows aren't likely never have trampled or anything. But I mean, if a herd of wild Mustangs come running through, get spooked, you have stallions that can be super dangerous. It's more of a risk to have those animals loose on public lands for some of those things, for sure. And you don't get any cost benefit back from running those. It's just a cost sink program for the government at that point.
Jason also says, do vegetarians understand that if you take meat out of the American diet, there would be a vegetable shortage very fast? What are you going to feed people? I mean, meat is, and quite frankly, it's just, in my world and the research I've done, beef is really good for you. And it's part of my life. And I think it's too much a part of, you can't start taking every little thing out of the diet.
No.
For people, because we're not all gonna, God bless you, vegetarians, that's fine, but it's not any better than what we're doing. It just works for you, and I get so tired of that attitude.
Well, and we have so much land that we graze our cattle on that's really not fit for anything else. You can't dryland farm it, you can't run pivots, you can't grow crops there. It's tree filled, it's rock filled, our cows have adapted to survive on it because we manage it well. They're not in there for long periods of time, but we do get use out of a bunch of that land that would otherwise just be, there's not much you would do with it if you weren't raising animals on it.
It's pretty desolate out there. I've been there.
It can be, yes.
Okay, now here's a fun comment. Beth Ann Ball says, if you're going to start worrying about farts, then my husband and our teenage boys are in big trouble.
I feel you on that one, Beth Ann.
Yeah, Beth Ann, we'll have a shortage of male population if they start doing it on gas. Wouldn't that be considered natural gas?
Well, that's right.
They're banning that in Eugene, Oregon. They're going to try to ban natural gas. I don't know what people are going to do.
I was going to say that's going to be rough.
And I have seen the overpopulation of wild horses affect elk herds, says Tom Hunt, also on here. What's the one thing that people, do you think, mostly misunderstand about what it is that you do, even if it's something trite and silly? I
don't even know. I think it's just they're so far removed, and I think it's hard. They have this classical image of the rancher, the farmer, the old cowboy. But we've made a lot of progress and we're a lot different and we can do more. And I don't know if that's good or bad for some people, but I don't know if they would just tell me what they wanted to know or what they wanted different, it'd make it a lot easier. I think not knowing what people don't like about us is what's hard sometimes.
And isn't it kind of tough too, because you're just trying to live your life, and cattle ranching is a big part of your life,
right?
But it's really not the cattle and the beef. It's the whole part of the community and you know what I mean? It's like all of our jobs. It becomes, I think people forget sometimes that this is a way of life that you have chosen.
Right.
And you have improved it from what your grandparents did. Not that they were bad. I'm not saying
Right.
that.
Exactly. But
But
there should always be progress. If there's not progress from one generation to the next, then what are we doing? I mean, that's horrifying.
right. Well, I think the same thing happens with the timber industry, is, well, back in the day and 150 years ago, they came in and raped all the land. Well, I mean, I personally know of a story of a guy who then came out and he saw what the big companies were doing. He came up with an idea. Hey, what if we reforested this? And nobody was
Right.
reforesting at the time. So he bought hundreds of thousands of acres for nothing,
Yep.
reforested it, and then it became this thing. Well, that would have been just nothing, a wasteland, had he
Yep.
not come up with this idea. But now people criticize them for continuing to harvest those trees. And it's like, maybe everybody needs to take a little course in I think, especially for you guys, where does your food come from?
Right.
So if you're going to complain about it, then don't ever eat another hamburger. And the next time you go out to a steakhouse, you eat just mashed potatoes, because that's all. You got to stand up for what you believe in.
It's true. But if they want to keep giving me money while they're mad about it, that's fine too. So
Are there schools in Montana that support farming? Somebody's asking.
oh, absolutely. I will give it to our teachers in Montana, as we have ag teachers. We have programs called FFA, Future Farmers of America. Our little school in Townsend has excellent teachers. We have our own greenhouse set up. They have chickens. They sell flowers. And we have an egg day every year at the end of school where as like a cattle woman, I go and we do little booths that the kids come around and we show them all aspects of cows. There's things about branding. I brought bottle calves a couple of years in a row so they could see the calf. We've had a dairy cow there. And they just have everything related to egg, and the kids just spend a whole day enjoying it. It's awesome.
And Laurice, that's who asked the question. We have a video, there's a few back, that we went and actually talked to the ag kids and about some of the things that they were doing. And there was some really interesting, you'll love it. And what I love about that, because I think everybody thinks, okay, Townsend, and you're talking ranching, all these kids grew up on a farm. No, there's a bunch of city kids. I mean, because there's a little town here. I mean, to you guys, it's a town kids, but these are kids that don't have the animals and all the other things. And they're learning marketing of products, of farm products, and selling farmers insurance for farming, banking for farming. I mean, there's so many different aspects of farming, and they're all learning that stuff, which is, I found that fascinating and really cool, because even within this area, this little town, there's a little city in that little town with kids, and they're getting exposed to that ag world because they live here.
That's right.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on and letting me come out and hang out at your ranch. And when you get ready to brand them, would you call me?
It sounds good.
I really want to. Would you let me do it? I just want to do one.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can
man.
hold them, you can brand them, all that fun stuff.
No, my wife said, ask her if we can come out and help them brand. I would love to see that, because my son says it's not about the branding, it's about the event around the branding. Like, everybody's a part of that.
It's true.
All right, Melanie, thanks again for joining us and explaining what you can about the world of cattle.
Super. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So there you go, guys. Again, she lives right outside of Townsend, Montana. And here's a couple of things I learned really fast when you live in Montana. You never ask a rancher how many cattle they have, and you never ask how many acres. It's kind of like asking what your bank account looks like. So there, I just helped you. Anyway, okay, so tomorrow night, we are going to be talking to an organization back there in Oregon again. And what they're doing is trying to bring about school choice in Oregon, other choices, and they're doing it in a really non-confrontational way. So they saw what happened with Churchill and all the news that was last week. And they called me and said, we have a program to help get parents involved, help get them on the school board, help get them in this process. And so they do that, as well as working on a plan so that you will be hopefully voting on something about school choice in Oregon, maybe in 24 or 25. So we'll have them on tomorrow. And then Rob from Charleston Bait and Tackle is going to join me on Thursday. And we'll probably be talking about Trump and his imminent arrest, which I don't know what you think about that, but what a crazy world we live in. You know, you got a president who is getting us into a war, and we've got another president they just can't let go of. Donald Trump is like a big booger on a finger for Democrats on the progressive far left. They just shake and shake, and you can't get that booger off your finger. Hatred is a blinder. And man, if we could get them to just get away from that, not be so afraid of the guy, and just worry about their own presidential person that they have in there and what the job he's doing, we'd all be better off, my personal opinion. All right, we want to thank our sponsors again, Montana Oral Surgery and Implant Center. Also, Dr. Michael Bratland at Chris Dental Family Dentistry and Denture Center in Eugene, Oregon. And also, Greg over at Fairway Mortgage Company. He'll help you out and get you settled. And if you're moving from Oregon to Montana, or Washington to Montana, or Montana to Oregon, he can take care of those processes that have to go through. So anyway, that's how it works. All right, share this on your page, because Facebook likes to show me, throttle me back. So push it out there, let people see it, and I'll talk to you tomorrow night. Have a good evening. Stay involved. It's good, man.